Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. We could not wait for the end of the Eagles-Bills game as it continues on through overtime. Both Nick and I have some work obligations after these outside of Big Blue Banter. So we're going live now. In the peripheral, I'm going to try to watch this game. It looks like A.J. Brown, Nick, nearly coughed up the game here and gave it away to the Bills, which would have been awesome, but we can't have nice things as Giants fans, so I'm sure the Eagles will eventually win this game. That's an incomplete pass. I'm also buffering and buying time as we let more viewers come in. Looks like there's still only a few people in here, so I'm going to post this chat as well. Join us live now. Nick, let's get some early thoughts from you on the Giants win today over the New England Patriots.
Early thoughts. What a tantalizing 10-7 game we got to witness there from Tommy DeVito, who continues to show us a little bit, right? I would have to say I was impressed by a couple of those throws to Jalen Hyatt. And dude, this is the first receiver to go over 100 yards in a game for the New York Giants this season, which is insane. And now I'm trying to think back to who was the last receiver to do that. I'm guessing it was somebody last season.
Wan'Dale Robinson in the regular season.
Wait, so it was Wan'Dale Robinson against Detroit was the last receiver to
the
go
garbage
over
time stats. Yep.
Oh my God, dude, that is absolutely crazy. But good for Jalen Hyatt, and also great for the New York Giants defense. And I get it. They're playing against Mac Jones. They're playing against Bailey Zappi. But hell, last season, when this defense was perceived as good, they only had 6 interceptions. They have 6 in the last 2 games. So there's something to build upon there as media or whoever are trying to run Wink Martindale out of the building, which is also another subplot to this week.
Yeah, I want to talk with you tonight as we let more people come in. And I just tweeted out, Nick, if you want to send it out. Maybe you did already tweet it out, but looks like the Eagles are, by the way, about to win this football game, which sucks, but it's life as a Giants fan. The Eagles just always win. They're going to go to 10-1, which is a joke. But yeah, with as far as what you were saying, as far as the big takeaways from this game, Jalen Hyatt's definitely the number one takeaway. I think in addition to showing off the traits that he's already shown this season, he showed some more. The toe tapping catch was really well done. He just did a great job concentrating, getting his feet in. The underneath throw that he caught and then kind of stopped on a dime and created more space after the catch and more yards after the catch by juking out the defender was really good. It was his first 100-yard receiving game of his entire career. Jalen Hyatt, though, he should have had like 200 against Las Vegas. Jones missed about 150 yards of Jalen Hyatt being open. I thought DeVito did a good job actually throwing him the football, a couple of hole shots that, we haven't seen so often. And there it is, the touchdown by the Eagles to win the game. What a joke. What an absolute joke. Jalen Hurts rushing TD for your fantasy.
There he goes. There he goes.
I just can't believe they just win every freaking game, man. It's just so sickening. But
what's Nick Sirianni going to do in the meantime now?
Yeah. What are KC fans? Where you at now, Kansas City? That was the most cringe thing ever from Sirianni.
It's so embarrassing. It's crazy because we have an Italian in house, and it's awesome having Tommy DeVito, Mr. Pies on. Like, I feel it, And then I just look right down 95, and I see Nick Sirianni, and it's like a cringe moment. It's like, oh gosh, let's try to drop a vowel off the end of Sirianni's last name, please.
Yeah, and I think other takeaways, which we're going to get into in the positives, and I do want to discuss the Wink Martindale, Brian Daboll rumors, and then kind of what Daboll said after that shortly. But some other takeaways, I thought Kayvon Thibodeau, at least on the broadcast, had a good game, Nick. He had multiple tackles for loss. I counted 3 on my own. That's big for a defensive end to have that kind of game. Bobby Okereke, obviously, almost had 2 interceptions this game, had 1 interception, just did a great job reading the quarterback's eyes. But, outside of the takeaways, Nick, I do think it's worth considering just, how bad the Patriots played in this game. There was a stat from Ben Volin that said Mac Jones' passer rating would have been 39.6. He went 0 for 21 with 21 passes spiked directly into the ground. Instead, it was 27.8. He actually hurt the Patriots' chances of winning this game by being on the field. Mac Jones threw horrific interceptions that cost them 2 field goals, one that they should have had, one they gave away to the Giants. The Giants on offense as well broke history as well. This just got, I'm just trying to give some context into why this really wasn't a very good win for the Giants. If we're going to be honest about the situation. It's not just the fact that Mac Jones did that and Bailey Jones had what he did. In addition to that, the Patriots, EPA per play was just significantly better running the football. Point it was in the green at 0.17, but minus 0.44 is passing. And yet they pass the ball a lot in weird spots here. Also, Since 1999, 553 teams have had an offensive success rate of 29.4% or lower. This is according to Doug Analytics. Only 96 of those, 17.4%, have won the game. Since 1999, 357 teams have had 15 or less successful offensive plays in a game. Only 14% have won the game. The Giants joined both clubs today. They only had 15 successful offensive plays, positive EPA plays on offense, 3 of 18 on runs, 12 of 33 on passes. This was not a good game by the Giants. This was the ugliest win I can remember by this football team. And it's time to at least address the reality of the situation, which is that this win it's hard for me to imagine this win helps their long-term future. It's good that they got it. It's good that it could quell some heat between Wink Martindale and between Brian Daboll. You know, these players are playing for their jobs. They're playing for their families. They're not expected to lose games. They're playing their hardest to win. From that standpoint, it's expected and it's understandable. But I'm not going to be the co-host or the guy on any Giants podcast who sits here and tries to feign for wins like this, because it's just not my personality. It's not my reality, and I don't believe in it at all. And I don't believe in the momentum thing carrying over. We were sold a bill of goods that the Giants were going to carry over momentum from these meaningful wins in the 2020 season under Joe Judge. 2021 came around and none of it carried over. We were sold the idea that last year wins would carry over culture. It didn't carry over. The only way to build a culture is by consistently threatening the opposing team and winning football games on a consistent basis. That's the way to build a culture. Again, these guys have to win football games. They're playing for their jobs. I'm happy if it made things better between Daboll and Wink. Obviously, Wink deserves a lot of credit for this game, but it's hard to imagine that this is going to be a good win for the Giants long-term for their future success, Nick. It, in my opinion, puts them completely out of the mix for Caleb Williams. Maybe Drake May, but I doubt it. Look, I just know what keeps happening. Kurt put it out there, and shout out Kurt, one of our listeners. He's like, in the last 6 seasons, the Giants have gone 2 or 8 or worse in the first 10 games, then reeled off a bunch of wins at the end of the season. This is a cycle that they're in right now. I don't really like this cycle. I don't know how fans can enjoy this cycle, but I do understand wanting your team to win and rooting for the win. So I am understanding why people like this win. They're really happy. They're jazzed up, and I can be happy for you guys. And I'm not that sad, Nick, because in the end, the draft is a crapshoot, and maybe these top quarterback prospects aren't going to be good, and maybe the Giants can figure out a way to get a good prospect. But I need to find a way out of this cycle, Nick, for my own health and for the health of this franchise. And so it's hard to imagine that winning these games is the way out of this cycle.
Yeah, I would like to have a higher draft pick as well. I'm not going to sit here, and this is where I definitely disagree with you to some degree, and act as if every situation is the 2020 Joe Judge coach team. I think right now, one of the points that we've made over the last several weeks is Brian Daboll can't lose the locker room. That's the way he is going to lose a job, and we don't want that to happen. Winning this football game is one way for him not to lose the locker room. So that's one point. But I mean, we're in the same boat together, that we believe, and I think it's the right belief. Finding a difference-making quarterback is what is going to turn the fortunes of the recent New York Giants around. And one of the ways you can do that is to have a higher draft pick in a draft class that seemingly does have a lot of quarterback prospects. We're a little bit premature in our research with that, and we're going to really dive deep into it. But we do know there are 2 quarterback prospects that are considered special by the greater draft community right now. Winning football games, it's going to take you out of the opportunity to at least get them initially. Now, the Giants, as we've brought up before with Joe Schoen, they can maneuver the draft. And I think that's one way that the Giants may be able to land the second quarterback in this draft class. I don't know if it would be Caleb Williams. Again, it's a little bit early, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Giants find a way to trade up in this draft class to land one of those quarterbacks, if Joe Schoen is so inclined to do so. But I'm not going to sit here and also just be like, damn it, the Giants lost either. Look, they're out there, they're playing. Just see Bobby Okereke at the end of the game be like, look, we have a lot of fight in us. And to see the leaders of this team still sticking up for their coaching staff, there's definitely something to be gained from that.
Yeah, I think it's something to be gained for the players for sure, and for the coaching staff. My thing is that I think it's more to be gained for this year, Nick. I think it's good for them for this year. I don't believe that anything carries over into next year. Either way, because it didn't carry over last year into this year, and it didn't carry over 2020 to 21. And I don't really believe in any of this. People are like, what about the Lions? I'm like, the Lions are good this year because their roster and because they're coaching, because they're players, and because the schedule, and because things that are happening this year. To me, every year is a fresh new season, and I stand by that, and I will never come off that point. I think every year is different and very important to understand that. But I understand your point of view there as well, and I'm happy for the players. It's good for them for this year, for Bobby Okereke, for the coaching staffs, and And I'm happy for other people who are happy about this win. I'm not mad about this win, but I'm definitely not going to lie and say I'm happy about this win. There's just nothing to be gained in my mind, especially because the Patriots were 2-8. That was one of the bigger issues with winning this type of game.
They look worse
it
than
is
the Giants, man. They
they're
look
a much
like
worse team than the Giants,
significantly worse.
The Giants are not that bad of a team. They just don't have a quarter. They don't have anyone. They don't have a passing game. That's the Giants' problem. And neither do the Patriots, but the Giants are better than the Patriots in every other way. No, neither team is a passing game, but at least the Giants have other things, I should say, not everything else, because the Giants did not successfully run the football today, as I brought up in those EPA stats earlier. Though DeVito did hit a couple hole shots and he hit a couple explosive passes and played a role in this game. But reality is that the Patriots lost this game more than the Giants won this game. I think anyone who studies football can understand that. And if you disagree with that, I almost question if you watch the game. The Patriots threw 3 horrific interceptions, and I just went over the EPA stats. The Giants were not successful ever on offense, essentially.
It is kind of crazy, though, and obviously I don't disagree with you on that point, that we're actually seeing explosive plays on offense now with Tommy DeVito as the quarterback. And that's not saying, oh, Daniel Jones, I'm not making an argument out of it. But over the last 2 weeks, and yes, you're playing defenses that are a little suspect. I think it's safe to say New England, it's not the Bill Belichick coach defense of the past. But the Giants are finding ways to at least create explosive plays, which is something that you and I complained and bitched about for how long. We need explosive plays. We need explosive plays. Well, Jalen Hyde had a few in this game, right? They're finding ways to get the football into Wan'Dale Robinson's hand. That's one of the calls that we had heading into the week. We're like, hey, I think the Giants are going to get the football into Wan'Dale Robinson's hands to get to the edge, to try to take advantage of the bigger bodies that are on the defensive line. We saw that initially, right? I think twice on the first drive, and one of them resulted in a fumble off of a botched exchange from Tommy DeVito and Wan'Dale Robinson. But at least there's some positivities to take away from a passing attack that has been kind of shitty for 4 years or so.
It's been horrible for 4 years. Yet last week was the first time the Giants had a 3-touchdown passing game from a quarterback in 4 years. But we need to really step back and consider it. And then today they have a 100-yard passer for the first time in 19 games, or at least, not including the playoffs, because I know Hodgins did go over 100, but regular season games. And it's just, and they're having explosive plays for multiple explosive plays a game on the pass game for the first time in years in this passing game. I mean, at some point you really have to take a step back and consider, because the question is not we go over this every week, but it's very important to address. The question is not is Tommy DeVito better than Daniel Jones because he's creating explosive plays in the pass game? We know that he's not. Over the long term, Tommy DeVito will not be better than Daniel Jones. But that's not the point. The point is Daniel Jones a lot better than Tommy DeVito? It's not about, is he the same or is he a little worse or a little better? You need to start getting some explosive plays in your pass game. The Giants were dead last in explosive pass plays in 2022, and their O-line was better than what it is right now. Andrew Thomas was fully healthy, and they didn't have random guys playing guard. Okay, this is important to note. There's no real excuse for why the Giants weren't creating any explosive plays on passing game last year. Over the 2020 season, there just is no excuse for why it wasn't happening in my mind, and why it's now happening with Tyrod and Tommy DeVito. And it's concerning to say the least, but it's only concerning now because the Giants are in a reality situation, Nick, where they may be, I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback next year. It's the thing at this point. They may not like anyone but Drake May and Caleb Williams. We don't know that for a fact. Jaden Daniels, they may not like his arm talent. I have questions myself about his ability to drive the football with velocity. They may not like Bo Nix's profile. They may not like any of these other dudes, but those two. We just don't know that right now. We know they're probably interested in Drake May because they've been to a lot of his games. And Caleb Williams, I don't need any information on. I know any QB, any coach and GM in the history of freaking football would want to work with an arm like Caleb Williams. I don't care about all the other off-field concerns. He's got a generational arm. He really does if you study this game. But those guys are now out of the mix, most likely. I'd be shocked if the Giants. Now, you said they could trade up for a quarterback. It's possible for sure, but it's going to require the teams that are picking 1 and 2 to not want a quarterback. And then even if you get that, you have to trade $1 million draft assets to get one of these guys for a roster like the Giants, who can't really afford to give up any draft assets. So it doesn't feel like a win there either, if that's the case. But
especially when you could have just, and again, we're not advocating for losing. We know that the players and the coaches view it this way. But when you could have just lost meaningless games towards the end of a season, and then you didn't have to give up all those draft assets. And when the draft rolls around, a lot of us would be like, oh, shit, man, I don't want to part ways with the next 2 first-round picks that we have. You're going to need those to build around whatever quarterback the Giants select. But I digress.
In which case, I'd almost rather Nick just take a shot on one of these other quarterbacks and not give up the draft assets, even if, I don't even know. We'll get to that when we study the team more. But yeah, man. I mean, look, they got to play to win the games. They're winning these football games. It is what it is at this point. I just want to get out of the cycle as best as I can, Nick. And it just feels like we're in this constant cycle of bad starts this season through the first 8 or 9 or 10 games, playoffs out of contention, and then they grind out 2 to 4 wins at the end of the season every year. And where, you know, I don't know, man. It's not a good cycle. It's definitely not a good cycle to me.
10-7, man. What a game this was. I'll say this, though, dude. It was kind of cool, at least, to see the special teams of the New York Giants absolutely decapitate several New England Patriots. I felt bad for my guy, Demario Douglas, who I'm a big fan of. I have him in like all my dynasty leagues. I think he's a really good football player. But Cam Brown like clotheslined that dude, and he ended up leaving the game. Hopefully he's okay. But you also had that hit by Carter Coughlin, and I don't know exactly who that was on the kickoff, though. That was another just huge play where you're seeing these special teams tackles. We hear a lot about Carter Coughlin and Cam Brown. They're special teams aces. Then we see our special teams, and we're like, this unit sucks. Like, what the hell is going on? It was good to actually see huge, impactful hits that like made everyone in the stadium go like, oh, and actually looked as if the special teams unit was more than competent.
Yeah, the special teams definitely had a big day for the Giants. It's good to see some improvement there.
Field position, man. That's what it was.
This was pretty much just like the Jets game. It was very similar to the Jets.
Yeah.
A little different because they actually tried to pass the ball in this game. They didn't try to pass the ball against the Jets.
Good point.
So we can give them that. But it was still just like that, the type of game where, you know, like I said, I mean, the Giants joined 2 clubs today, thanks to Dougie Analytics. Shout him out. 14% and 70% of teams that have been as unsuccessful on a per play basis. The Giants on offense have actually won football games. Giants found a way to do it. The Patriots threw 3 horrific interceptions. The Patriots did not run the ball as much as they should have, despite quadruple more success for them on run plays than pass plays. The Patriots should have been running right at the teeth of this Giants run defense without Dexter Lawrence. I honestly questioned at times, like, Nick, like, I don't believe it, but a little thought went into my head, like, is Belichick tanking this game when he like didn't pull Mac Jones? Because Mac Jones was just unbelievably bad and hurting his football team. Basically cost his team the game, in my personal opinion. Did cost his team the game. Literally, the reason this game was decided as a win for the Giants and a loss for the Pats is because of Mac Jones, if you ask me. More than anyone else, at least. And so they did go to Bailey Zappi though in the second half, and he was just as horrific as Mac Jones. Bailey Zappi looked like DeVito looks clearly better than these two. I don't know what that's worth, but Tommy DeVito does look clearly better than these two. And now some person did bring up a good point, Nick. We are in the phase of DeVito where DCs don't have a lot of film on him yet. When you get through that 8 games, as they say, film on quarterbacks, that's when they take away the concepts you like, and that's when it really starts to struggle. We saw that with, you know, everyone, Davis Mills, Daniel Jones, just every quarterback you can think of except for the good ones who can get through it. But as far as what we saw today, and I don't really think the Giants were like preparing that much film on Bailey Zappi. I just think Bailey Zappi just couldn't get the ball out there. Like, the balls were dying on him, like 9-yard outs were like, I saw him throw a 9-yard comeback at the receiver's feet. And I think his first 6 completions, I have this stat somewhere. This is another crazy stat. I talked about the stat earlier, Nick, where if Mac Jones had just spiked the ball 29 times, he would have helped his team win more than actually what he did. But there's an even crazier stat with Bailey Zappi I'm trying to find right now. Just a wild stat from Zappi. I think it was the first 6 pass. Here it is. Here's Bailey's first 7 pass completions, Nick. Listen to the air yards on these throws. -3, -5, -4, 5-1, -3, and -2. Yeah. I mean, they're just throwing screens and shit around line of scrimmage.
I was going to say the Giants defense, they aligned a lot in like just cover 3 with the outside third guy off the line of scrimmage, given the cushion. And then the Patriots will come out in stacks essentially and just throw it to the number 2 in the stack, which was Douglas a lot of the times before he ended up getting injured. That's one of the ways they were able to move the football. It was just hand the football off up the gut because there is no Dexter Lawrence out there because he's inactive, or just try to throw into the leverage with the lead blocker. Credit to the New York Giants, credit to Adoree Jackson and Deonte Banks and the cornerbacks for just flying downhill and making tackles. Also, Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke as well. There were a couple plays where it was like Ramondre Stevenson bounced to the outside, and I was like, oh, and then I just saw 41 just fly right into him and just make the tackle. I'm telling you, man, we've been saying it for a while now, starting to get annoying probably, but these linebackers, dude, I've been so impressed with what we've seen this season from them.
Me too. They played a great game, even though McFadden got shaken up a little bit, Nick.
Came back.
And came back into the game. I think he should be fine as long as, you know, nothing pops up during the week. I would say, Nick, this one is definitely a little bit different of a win than the Andrew Thomas game, the Chase Young Bowl, as they call it, versus Washington 2019, because that one was more satisfying because you had a rookie quarterback who threw for 5 touchdown passes and gave you hope that, wow, this future could be bright because look at what this quarterback can do. In this game, there's nothing really besides Jalen Hyatt that which I already knew was going to be a good player if he just has decent quarterback play or good quarterback play. That's the difference in this one. There's no rookie quarterback to bank on. There's no real, it's hard for me to find it. The silver lining I find is that maybe this helped the Wink Martindale, Brian Dable relationship to an extent. That's my silver lining as far as future outlook goes. But it is definitely worth questioning, like when you have a wide receiver catch his first 100-yard game in 19 games, when you have last week be the first time a Giants quarterback threw 3 touchdown passes in 4 years, like how is that not at least a little bit on Daniel Jones? That's really just like a thought that goes into my head, because right now, Nick, we're staring down the barrel of potentially Jones starting again in 2024. I think the door is wide open right now for that if they can't locate a quarterback they like in this draft class.
It's open, but it's still so early, man. And I think that 2019 game, I think that was like a week 15 or week 16 game. Like
Yes.
this is only week 12. It's still early.
Yeah, it's only week 12. Oh my God.
The Giants haven't even had their bye week yet. Like there's a lot that goes in. Like I understand where you're coming from, but it is still a little premature. And it just sucks because we had such high expectations on this season, rightfully so, because the Giants heading into it made all the moves that they made and everything fell flat. And now they're actually looking solid, but it's like, what is it even worth at this point? Because you're not going to be going to the playoffs and you have to face the Eagles twice down the stretch and all of this. So I get it, man. It's
also harder for me to say they're looking solid. This game to me doesn't really strike.
I think that's
solid. It was more just they played a pathetic football team, the Patriots, and the Patriots handed them a football game that now goes down in the win column.
I think that's fair, but and you're right because of the quarterbacks the Giants played tonight, or today. But at the same time, Dan, I want to give some credit to the defense. I want to give some credit to Wink.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? So like Xavier McKinney, that's an excellent play that he made on Bailey Zappi. Now, I think I could have threw the pass harder than Bailey Zappi, and that's not a testament to my arm strength whatsoever.
Well, I feel like Mac Jones is even less zip on his passes than Zappi somehow, dude. Those Mac Jones passes were like lollipopping up in the air. I know, man.
Yeah, Mac Jones he's not it. He's not it.
I didn't realize how bad he was. We texted about this during the game. We're like, I mean, I heard it was bad. I didn't realize how bad Mac Jones truly is. Like, he has no velocity on any throw that he makes at any point in the field, which is crazy. The Okereke interception, Nick, I felt like it just like was one of those crazy how little. I mean, did he get hit on that? Maybe there was no.
Well, he had a free rusher on him. He didn't get hit, but I just think he didn't account for Okereke because Okereke was acting as if he was going to come on the blitz, and then he bailed back out. So he just didn't even like account for him being there. He just knew he had an angle route, like a Texas concept coming from a wide receiver. Breaking back to the inside, so it wasn't coming out of the backfield. But let's get to some of these supers. Shane, thank you so much. Shane says, so Tommy DeVito has helped shatter the over. When I asked you guys 3 games ago, 5.5 over under offensive touchdowns, is DeVito the starter even when Tyrod returns and potential backup for years to come? Shane, please throw it at us, man. Throw it in our face. He is smashing the over on the touchdowns, and we absolutely love that for the kid, obviously. And we're glad that you are right since the Giants are playing well. Well, glad depends on how you look at it because the Giants winning football games right now. I could see why some fans might not be all about it, but it's nice to see the New York Giants actually put together some competent football, at least on the defensive side of the football, and on offense from the explosive play standpoint.
Yeah, good call here, Shane, by you. 5.5 touchdowns. He's way over that. As far as the question goes, is DeVito the starter when Tyrod returns? That's a great question. Now, I thought, a few weeks ago, there's no chance that would happen because the Giants locker room wouldn't allow it. And they'd basically, overthrow any coach that tries to say we're not going to put Tyrod in there because Tyrod gives them the best chance to win. I personally still think Tyrod does give the Giants the best chance to win, even in this grace period of Tommy DeVito. Now, as far as potential backup for years to come, I like to swing higher on backup quarterback. I would rather get somebody who Dable can mold with better arm talent, better size, better speed, much better pocket presence and processing. But he's definitely putting himself in the mix. Like, he's making throws downfield. When he actually throws the football, he looks okay, right, Nick? Like, I still think he takes too many sacks and he's not great in the pocket, but he actually looks okay throwing a football. Though he hasn't obviously, challenged too much downfield, with the exception of that 3rd and 16 play. But he has
a couple 3rd and longs.
Yeah, he hits whole shot. I mean, when I'm saying downfield, I mean like 30 to plus or 35, 40 plus, like that area of the field, like the area that people defend Josh Allen, the area that people defend the really good quarterbacks from. But, he's doing some things, but the big thing is the tape thing. Like, first 8 quarterbacks of a quarterback's career, first 8 games of quarterback's career, DCs don't have tape on it. They adjust to it. They take away concepts. And that's the period where I need to know if a QB can play football. So we may not get that. We're only going to get, it seems like, a few games from him, maybe 8 in total, or 5, 6, 7, 8. But it's worth considering. And I think the Giants will definitely at this point consider it, Nick. It's going to be interesting because as we look forward to the future of this team from a quarterback standpoint, they have Jones under contract for next year. Tyrod Taylor is not under contract. DeVito is is he under contract for next year? I'm not actually entirely sure.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
I'm not sure. I think they might need to re-sign him to like one of those like deals they signed Hodgins to. Like he might be like a restricted free agent.
I mean, he was an undrafted kid, so he shouldn't be.
Undrafted kid, so I guess he should have a couple more. I don't know what the contract is for him, but that's the question you ask yourself because they're in a kind of tough position there, right? Like DJ, we don't know when he's going to come back. Daniel Jones from a torn ACL. Obviously, the neck issue hopefully is behind him by that point. So then you go into the season with a guy coming off a torn ACL and Tommy DeVito as the only quarterbacks. And I'm sure they'd sign someone else, of course, Nick. Now, whether that be a free agent or draft someone. But as far as you said, like it's only week 12, we don't know. There's still a lot to say. To me, it feels like a little less hopeful, and I'll explain why from that standpoint. The Patriots have 2 wins. The Giants now have 4. I don't really see the Patriots winning football games, right, Nick? And then the Cardinals have 2 wins. The Giants have 4. I don't really see the Cardinals winning more than 1, maybe, football game, right? So now we're looking down the barrel of really, at best, like the 4th pick if things can really break right for the Giants, which I don't even necessarily think they're going to from that standpoint. So that's the other thing with this game. It's not just that we might not have a quarterback that we can like in this draft. It's that Marv Harrison with this kind of win really comes out of your picture. People are like, oh, Marv Harrison this, Marv Harrison that. Start to kiss that goodbye. Don't think about Marv Harrison Jr. anymore with this 4th win because Marv Harrison Jr. is only going to be in play at pick 3, maybe 4 if you're lucky. He's definitely not making it past 4. And at this point, the Giants would need basically a miracle to even get the 4th pick in the draft. So I would kiss Marv Harrison goodbye if you're thinking about that. From that standpoint. And that's the thing with these wins you got to keep in mind. It's not just that you miss on the quarterbacks. Maybe you miss on as well as some of the top talent in this draft as well, Nick. And then the last thing for me on that standpoint is as far as quarterback goes, Nick, and here's the thing. It's like, I don't want to just draft a quarterback to draft a quarterback, right? Like I want to make sure that they feel conviction that he could be a game-changing talent at the next level because drafting quarterback to draft a quarterback is exactly what Dave Gettleman did with Daniel Jones in 2019. And look at what it's done for us since. 1 playoff win and half of every other season for us ends like this, where it's week 12 and we're winning. We can't even be sure we want to win. Like this is the sickest part. Like if you have to sit here and ask yourself, is it a good thing that your team won a game? Just think of how bad of a cycle you're in. If you have to sit and ask yourself, is it Tommy DeVito playing better than your QB1? Think of how bad of a cycle you're at. Even if you ask the question, even the answer is no, you're still in a horrific cycle just because you had to ask the question to begin with. I don't want to ask if wins are good anymore, Nick. I don't want to ask if my QB1 who's injured is playing worse than my QB3, for God's sake. Okay? I can't ask those questions anymore. I want out of this dangerous cycle, Nick. But again, like I said, I don't want to just draft a quarterback. So I'm so curious what's going to happen at the quarterback position for the Giants.
Yeah, I'm very curious as well. I would imagine it's not just going to be Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito. They will sign a veteran. They might draft a rookie, but they'll do something to address it because you don't even know when Daniel Jones is going to be back. But again, there's so much time that has to pass until that happens. So in the meantime, let's get to the next super from David Quitman. David, thank you so much. We are the same team as last year. Few lucky wins, then Tennessee, Baltimore, Jacksonville, Green Bay, Washington, and an easy schedule. Bad luck this year. Buffalo, Jets, and a hard schedule. This issue is as it always has been, the quarterback. That's David Quitman's take, and it's a solid take. Look, last season, Giants benefited from a lot of close wins. I think the coaching edge that they had definitely helped assist them in those wins. But this year, that just hasn't happened. And then 1 or 2 mistakes cost them the game. The Jets, Buffalo, those are the 2. The Giants could be 6-6 right now, which is crazy to think about in the playoff picture. Like, not only could they be, it's like safe to say they should be. It's that close. They had Buffalo on the road.
They've had things that they could have lost this game. They could have lost the Washington game. So I feel like you can do that with some of their wins too.
I think that's completely fair, Dan. But my point is, it seems so dismal right now, rightfully so. But at the same time, the Giants are like this close from different scenarios from being right there in the playoff picture, which if you were to ask most Giant fans, they don't deserve to be in the freaking playoff picture right now.
Yeah, and David, thank you so much for the donation, as always. And I think you're making a great point here as far as the same, like they did have. I'll say this: the only difference was for last year. A couple differences come to mind for me. Some of those wins, like Baltimore, Jacksonville. I guess none of the others, but Baltimore and Jacksonville were actually against good teams. Their wins this year are against trash ass teams. Arizona, horrible team, 2 wins.
Not
They
good.
beat the Patriots, horrible team, 2 wins. They beat Washington twice, horrible team that has some wins, but what, 4? And I mean, they actually had some good wins last year. So that's one difference I'd say about last year. The other one is simple to me, and it's the biggest reason why the Giants failed this year. And it was my biggest concern going into the year. And I said that all the way back in January. It's that they designed a very nice system to work for last season. Daniel Jones, don't really throw the ball further than 10 yards very often. Boot action, dump it down. Boot action, hit a tight end. Boot action, do this. Make some shit happen sometimes in the red zone when you scramble. Look to your first read in the quick game, and if you don't like it, just run. And then this year, teams got tape on that. They took it all away, and they tried to do new things and expand and open up the passing game. And Daniel Jones wasn't capable of doing it. I know his offensive line was injured to a horrific degree and terrible, and it's not Daniel Jones's fault entirely. But it also doesn't give me confidence from what I've seen this year that he can just all of a sudden take this massive jump in his mental processing and start to throw the football out further than 10 yards and generate explosive pass plays when he wasn't able to even last year in his career year. They were dead last in explosive pass plays. So I just kind of think the biggest difference to me is they had a nice system, designed it for Jones, maximized his skill set out, maxed it out to the best of their ability. I think he had 22 total touchdowns, 700 yards rushing, a little bit of passing. And then this year they were figured out, and that was kind of it from the offense. Oh, you're muted, Nick. You're muted, or you just lost.
Yep, I'm good now. My bad. Yeah. So I keep clicking on and off these, but I think you're spot on. And the Giants, man, even though they only had 6 interceptions last year, they were opportunistic on defense, punching the football out of the hands of a lot of opposing running backs. So I want to give them due credit. Gil Martinez. Gil, thank you as always. He says, can't hang long, just stopping by to show support. Take my money. Hyatt is looking squared away. I love the fact that you use the term squared away. Very militaristic of you. Not super excited about the win, but hard to be mad. And I think a lot of Giant fans feel that way. I think I can probably be constituted. Like, I'm not sitting here.
Me too. I also want to make it clear I feel that way as well. I'm not mad about the win. I'm just in a point like we're in this cycle.
I think the cycle that you articulated is very accurate, because it's been like this since we've been covering this football team.
Yeah,
it really has been. And I think how you brought up the 2019 season, and that even though it was week 16 and not week 12, you could take a lot of positives away from that week 16 win against the Commanders. Right now, it's
quarterback throws 5 TDs.
And especially right now, because we're not sold on Daniel Jones, and he's coming off of a torn ACL, and he's making $47 million. There's a lot of compounding.
And we're not sold on DeVito. That's the thing. Neither of us think DeVito's like their starting quarterback.
And again, like, it's wildly premature. It's still a super cool story. Like, and I absolutely love it. And I'm enjoying the ride of Tommy DeVito right now. But I'm not sitting here saying this guy is the long-term answer. I don't really think there are probably a lot of Giant fans who are doing that. There probably are a lot who are like, this is really cool. Maybe he could develop into X, Y, Z. But as you said, defensive coordinators have not seen him yet. And he's sitting there taking a lot of sacks. I'll say this about DeVito. I think he can maybe do a better job, obviously, without taking those sacks. And that can be developed, right? Like, that can certainly be developed. But right now, he's actually running like a rhythmic offense at times.
Yeah.
Like, when he gets to his 1 and his 2 and it's open, he fires a football and he's being very decisive. And I really enjoy seeing
him working through his reads in a real interesting way. But unfortunately for me, Nick, it's like, that's the thing. It's like, the reality is, let's bring it back to reality, Nick. Do you feel that way, Nick? Because we haven't seen that a lot from Daniel Jones. Like, how often has Daniel Jones operated a rhythmic passing game in our lifetime? Like,
I don't think
a little bit last year against bad defenses with the quick game, but like,
I don't think it's that necessarily. I think it's because the expectation for Tommy DeVito was very low, and he's able to do that. Because we have seen Daniel Jones operate somewhat of a rhythmic. It's not as
but I'm saying no somewhat, with no qualification, with no you played Donatel, the worst defensive coordinator maybe in NFL history, with none of this bullshit. Just 4 or 5 games in a row of a rhythmic passing game from Daniel Jones. Where is that in his career, and how is that not something that the fans question?
Well, last year I think the Giants went into a lot of games saying EPA would bear this out, but EPA skews towards this. it's better for us to use Daniel Jones's legs
Right.
rather than for him to get to that second and third progression, because a lot of defenses were rushing those defensive ends up the edge to beat the tackles around the edge, specifically Evan Neal. Like everybody was trying to run through Evan Neal's outside shoulder last year. And Daniel Jones, like, I'll just keep taking the B gap and I'll keep picking up 6, 7, 8 yards. And it worked out for the Giants. But to your point, yes, I would have liked to seen maybe a more rhythmic passing attack consistently employed by the Giants under Daniel Jones. And that goes back to, I think,
His whole career
coordinators. And I think Jason Garrett, I think that whole offense definitely maybe stymied Daniel Jones. And I'm trying to make excuses for him. I just don't think that was
it did.
I think running an offense that was good in 2005 in 2020, 2021 is not conducive whatsoever. No. But even dating back to Pat Shurmur as well, it was I mean, there was some rhythm to Pat Shurmur's offense though.
There was some rhythm in Pat Shurmur's offense. I think it happened in spurts though. Like you would go a good game, then you get that Vikings game they had where they threw 130 yards, and then you get a good game against like the Washington Commanders, and then you get another game against the Eagles or the Packers, the game after that, where it's like, we're back to 130 passing, we're back to 150 passing. I looked at the numbers earlier. I mean, Daniel Jones, I don't think he's ever thrown for over 3,500 yards in his entire career. There just has not been very much passing game success. Actually, I looked at it versus Justin Herbert also. Let me just take a look at that just so I can confirm that. I know earlier I was looking at his stats versus Justin Herbert. Yeah, he's topped out at 3,200 passing yards. That was last season in his career year, 3,000 in 2019. So, just not much of a passing attack for the most part. I know he was like close to dead last in EPA in 2019 as well as a passer.
Ronald. Oh, yes, Ronald. He's made this revelation. If it isn't Odell Filato, and then he says, we need May. This is our buddy who says that I look like Odell Beckham Jr. That is a high compliment. I believe he's playing right now. So I want to thank you, Ronald. And how would I pronounce that last name, Dan? I'm going to throw this one on you.
Gagne.
It's just Gagne, right?
Gagne.
Yeah, Ronald
Eric
Gagne. Eric Gagne. Sure. Yeah, Eric Gagne. That was what, baseball? Am I right there or no?
Yes.
Aha, look at me, baseball.
One of the greatest closers ever, but his career was marred by massive amounts of steroid use.
Oh, baseball steroids? Never.
He had like a crazy closing save streak, maybe like the best ever. And then he was just like, oh yeah, this dude just roided the fuck up.
Jeez, man. Well, Ronald, thank you so much for what I interpret as kind words. Ken, thank you as always. Ken, we absolutely love you. We absolutely love your last name. Dan, you want to take it?
Ken Schiaffretti says,
yes, look at that.
No, I screwed it up. I did it your way.
You
Ken
did.
Schiaffretti.
Yeah.
You don't pronounce the shield. But you got to do fast too. Said on Twitter, I said this on Twitter, but you have to trust if they take a QB, they think he has the tools. We should have enough to trust Dable and the staff to coach him up. This is a good point, Ken, and you made. And I think it's my silver lining from them really blowing their draft position with a win like this. And that's exactly what they're doing. Let's call a spade a spade. You can say it doesn't matter what their draft position is and you want the wins and who cares where they pick. That's fine if you believe that. But don't try to come out and say this doesn't screw their position, because the Patriots had 2 wins. The Giants had 3. This is a this is a draft pick altering type of win. But anyway, you could say that the silver lining would be that you can trust Brian Dable and Joe Schoen to find a quarterback who's a lesser prospect and get the most out of him, because look at what they've done with Tommy DeVito. Look at what they did with Tyrod Taylor. Look at what they did with Daniel Jones in 2022. In my opinion, that was incredible what Dable did with Jones last year. I mean, you took a guy who was completely unproductive as a quarterback through the first however many years of his career, just no success whatsoever, and then found a way to find some success. Was it mostly just, running the football, scrambling, and was it mostly just an offense that was hard to maintain for a long period of time and could eventually be figured out on tape? Yes, but it worked and he did it, and he could have just instead tried to trot Jones out and make him go through full field reads like Jason Garrett did, which was obviously a disaster. Daniel Jones has never been able to go through full field progression. He can do a half field offense at best. That dates back to Duke. That dates back to Garrett. That dates back to Shurmur and Dable. He's a half field read quarterback, Daniel Jones. Process is slow, even in the half field, reading low to high most of the time. But, they did something. They found a way to find success. So maybe you can think that he can find success from a lesser quarterback prospect, Ken. I hope you're right, man. I really do, man. I'm at that point. I need the Giants to find a quarterback so bad. I need to get out of this cycle, and I want to find the hope too, Nick, because that's the other thing from a selfish standpoint, Nick, and I'll let you jump in 1 second, but from a selfish standpoint, Nick, if the Giants keep winning games and get out of the race for any kind of quarterbacks, it just makes it a lot less to sell hope and to be excited about what we're well, to be true when we're talking about the hope for this franchise moving forward, not fake. Like, I know a lot of podcasts will give you the fake hope, and you can get that other places. I want to give you real hope. And the only way I can give you real hope is if they have an exciting quarterback prospect in the mix to change this freaking passing game. Like, so I don't know, man. That's where I'm at with that.
We got to really study the traits of some of these quarterbacks coming out, though, too.
Yeah.
Now, it does seem like, look, the NFL, they could be slow to adapt to certain evaluations, I guess is one way to term it. So when Josh Allen was drafted, it was obvious he had all the traits, but the tape wasn't necessarily there. But it didn't matter to the Buffalo Bills where Joe Schoen was, where Brian Daboll was, and they were able to coach up all of those traits. But right now, it seems like the NFL caught up to that because specifically Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen bucked a lot of the trend and kind of went against what it seemed like a lot of people in the NFL were thinking. Now, again, I'm not in the NFL, so I don't really exactly know what they were thinking, but those guys fell in the draft relative to their skill set and what they could do with their arm talent. But now, man, Anthony Richardson went 4 last year with I don't want to say the tape was bad, but he didn't have a high completion percentage.
It was not good tape. You could say
it wasn't
bad, Nick.
That wasn't like, a lot of it. And there wasn't a lot of it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. But he had like those eye-popping throws, but so did Pat Mahomes, right? But he ends up going.
So did Josh Allen, by the way. As bad as Wyoming tape was, he still had that.
Exactly. But my point is now a lot of the other NFL teams are going to bet on those traits. Caleb Williams, though, with him being in it, like if you just take him out of the picture, look, whoever has that first pick, whatever team needs a quarterback and has that first pick, they're going to go with Caleb Williams. Now, all of those other quarterbacks, we have to really hunker down and study their specific traits because I think once they land with Daboll and if they are coachable, I think Daboll can get so much out of him because he has a track record of proving it, man. Not just Daniel Jones, getting the most out of Daniel Jones, who isn't that top tier talent. But doing it with Josh Allen, right? Finding Josh Allen and also extracting the most out of him. And what Eric Turner said, I think we brought it up a couple of weeks ago on the podcast as well. Look, he's going to tailor his offense and tailor the way he teaches to maximize what that specific prospect does well. And that's what he did with Josh Allen and was able to accelerate his learning curve. And I think he could do that with whoever they bring in. But again, so freaking early. We don't even know what pick this team is going to have.
And
but that's one
another interesting
hope. It inspires hope at least.
Yeah, it does inspire the silver lining of hope that they can mold a not so premier quarterback prospect. Because at this point, the Giants will not be getting Caleb Williams, who I believe is the premier prospect. And in my opinion, this rules them out of Drake May as well. I know some people have some concerns with May, Nick, and I even myself have some. But when I watch him sprint out to his left when he gets immediate pressure, pocket breakdown, and then just rip a ball with anticipation, it's like no. This NFL sees us. He's 6'4", he's competitive, he's athletic, he can run as well. He's playing with a horrific North Carolina team with no offensive line and the worst defense I've probably ever seen. And he's still competing out there. Like, I think he's going number 2 overall as well. So, and that's not a pick the Giants will have any chance at anymore either with this win. So that's that case. But as far as the tools go, Nick, as far as what the Giants are looking for, it makes me think about something that I heard in last year's draft process. I think we discussed this, or maybe I haven't brought this up to you, but an NFL GM or someone was talking about Hendon Hooker, right? And I know me and you really liked Hendon Hooker, Nick. We liked the way he threw the football. We liked his release. And we liked that specific trait, how he can throw a football, down the field at all 3 levels, quick release. And that coach said, they were asking him, like, how do you evaluate a Hendon Hooker when his skill set is, when he's coming from this system, right? That Tennessee Josh Heupel system where it doesn't really translate to the NFL in the past. And, it looks like it has nothing, like it looks like they're playing a different game out there essentially. And that scout or that coach said something I thought was really interesting, Nick. He's like, actually, I like this. I want to have somebody who I can completely teach my way and doesn't have all these habits and things because he played in such a, let's call it a base. I don't want to call it basic offense, but I don't know how to term the Josh Heupel offense as it relates to the NFL. Yeah, just like
true air raid system.
True air raid, like no relation to the NFL type of offense. And he's like, I am happy. I would love to get a prospect at that. And so I'm curious, and that's like kind of goes back to what you said about with Eric Turner with the Cover One guys. It's like they kind of said the same thing about Josh Allen. Allen basically let Daboll teach him how to see the game and how to process defenses. And that could be a good thing to look for as the Giants, do, ultimately make a pick. Because even if they don't have the pick to take a first-round quarterback, I think they're taking a gamble in round 2 or 3, I would imagine. I
would imagine, too. I would imagine as well. And who knows who could be available, too, because we know this top talent.
Right.
Maybe there's going to be some guys who are going to fall to day 2 who would possibly be day 1 picks in the other drafts. Like, there's still like a lot, again, to go though. Kyle Kilday, thank you so much, Kyle. You are the man. He says, regardless of the veracity of those reports, Should the Giants consider moving on from Wink? I can't fully articulate it in an X's and O's manner, but it does feel to me like there is something off between scheme and personnel sometimes.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
I was just gonna say it depends, man. I think there are times where I look at, say, Xavier McKinney, who had an interception in this game,
Right.
and I'm like, is he being maximized? And I don't know. I don't know if he is. It doesn't seem like he is, because in year 2 we saw a lot of interceptions. But what does maximize mean? Is being maximized from an interception statistic standpoint? No. But he's still doing a lot. And every week after our all 22 reviews, we're like, damn, man, Xavier McKinney looked really good out there. So it's like he's still playing really good football. I appreciate a lot of what Wink Martindale does. I also appreciate that it deviates from what a lot of current defensive coordinators are doing. A lot of current defensive coordinators run quarters. They run too high. That's
Right.
not Wink Martindale. What Wink Martindale's cover 1. He's cover 3. He's middle of the field close. And then he'll also rotate and make game plan specific types of approaches against certain quarterbacks and certain teams. And I really like that about Wink Martindale. Also, I like the dictating and the pressure breaks pipes. But this season, through certain parts of the season, it didn't look great, but also, man, the offense sucks so bad that the defense just keeps going out there after 3 plays. And I think that takes a wear and tear on the mental part of the game. So, Kyle, I appreciate the question. If Wink is back as a defensive coordinator next year, you're not going to hear any complaints from me. That's the way I'll phrase this right here.
Yeah, I think you did a good job of that, Nick. I mean, Nick touched on some of the major points I like about Wink, the changing game plan for each quarterback, different game plans each week instead of just, sitting in some of these DCs, dude, they just basically run the same defense. It feels like every week to me. And I like that he doesn't do that. I like that what you said, pressure breaks pipes, dictates quarterbacks. Now, the questions, Nick, are fair. And the questions are, how does he do against the quarterbacks who are fast processors? Because he hasn't fared that well against some of the fastest processing quarterbacks. And you could bring up the Aaron Rodgers game as a good example of the opposite. But some people have said, and I kind of agree based on the tape last year, and there were a lot of good breakdowns of this, that Rodgers' processing slowed the F down last year. And it was his worst processing year of his entire career post-snap. And part of that is also he didn't have a good rapport with the receivers, but it all works into that. But it's fair to question Wink Martindale against good quarterbacks. It's also fair to question Wink Martindale against good teams. All these things are fair. At the same time, though, I know deep down in my head, until Wink gets the corners he wants, this system cannot be maximized. This system is based on him having really great cornerback play. And when he gets that, that's when he becomes an elite defensive coordinator. He showed it in Baltimore, the 1 year where they had all those corners healthy, and they were one of the most unstoppable defenses you can find that year with Wink as DC. There's a reason he was the defense coordinator for the Ravens for so long, never got fired, never got scapegoated in any of their seasons, anything like that. It's because he was doing a good job. You know how easy it is to scapegoat a coordinator, and yet Baltimore never found a way to do that until the very end when they were just like, we're going in different directions, yada, yada, whatever it may be. So I still have my faith in Wink. And I'm glad you brought up these reports because it is interesting. After the game, Brian Daboll said there's nothing wrong between us. We just who gets the last slice of pizza. But Jay Glazer is the one who reported this, Nick. And Jay Glazer hasn't missed. If this is a miss, this would be his first miss reporting on the Giants. Jay Glazer broke the Odell Beckham Jr. trade when no one had any inkling that was even close to happening, among many other reports.
Jay's the man, by the way.
Yes, he is. He's a great dude outside of just reporting on the Giants. But this would be his first miss. So it is still possible that we could wake up the end of the season, Nick, and read Wink Martindale and the Giants are moving in a different direction. And Leslie Frazier is going to be the defensive coordinator or whatnot. Like, we could still believe that. Even though Brian Daboll said today that everything's fine, I don't know if that's necessarily true. But I will say this. Brian Daboll's like basically coaching for his career still at this point in his life with the Giants. Because like you said, he doesn't want to lose the locker room, doesn't want to lose a million games. And who the hell is helping him the most? It's Wink freaking Martindale, right? Like, this dude just had 9 turnovers with his defense the last 2 weeks to give this guy 2 wins that he would have never got otherwise. He would have never got these wins without Wink Martindale these last 2 weeks. So it's just like crazy that he could ever be scapegoated to me.
100%. And also, what do you think Wink Martindale is going to say to the media? Like, oh, we're going to keep that in house. He says that he's going to get roasted. You got to make a joke of it.
True.
And then that's exactly
Brian Daboll you meant, but I know what you were saying. Yep.
Yeah, what I said, Wink Martindale. Yeah, Brian Daboll. Thank you.
You were saying.
Peter Pasquarelli. Thank you so much, Peter. Hopefully I said that one correct. I'd be a bad Paisan if I didn't. Anyways, if we end up sitting at 7, you think Shane would trade back for as much draft capital as possible in order to make a move for the quarterback in the near future? I think it's a possibility. I think all avenues and all doors are open, Peter. But again, it's the end of November right now. We have so much time until the draft happens. So we'll have to wait and see. But yes, that's certainly on the board, in my opinion.
That's a good question. And Peter, thank you so much for the donation, by the way. Peter Pasquarelli, that has to be the right way to pronounce your Italiano Paisan last name, even though Nick has previously missed a lot of pronunciations for
I missed
Italian.
like 2.
That's a lot. Considering
Yeah.
you're an Italian, that's a lot, and you need to do better.
Do I need to? Okay, you're not wrong, but do I need to go back into the way long ago and bring up the Marine Corps?
You definitely have the edge on me. There's no denying that. So I shouldn't even go down this rabbit hole. But I will say this, Peter. It's an interesting take. Like, do the Giants, if they keep winning football games down the stretch, or even if they just win these 4, but Patriots don't win another game, Arizona, all those teams don't win a lot of games, and they're sitting at 7. Will they trade back, pick up an extra first-round pick in 2025, get whatever's left? It's possible. I have read, it's early, but I've read that the 2025 quarterback class is bad. I don't know.
So early, though.
It's so early to hear that. To be honest, like, it feels like it's just not like, that's why I said I've heard it, but I've read it, but I don't know if I put any, weight into that. I'm sure things will change, but will he consider that? I would think, Nick, that if he did, he would feel like the quarterback class is good, or that he has guys he likes in it, Nick, because I'm sure it's early for us, but for the Giants, they're already scouting 2025 class quarterbacks. Like, they're a professional football team. I would hope that they're already looking into future quarterback prospects, especially given their quarterback situation right now. But if he sees something he likes, or he's multiple guys he likes, I feel like it might be possible, but I wouldn't say it's likely, Peter, if I had to guess.
Alrighty, let's get into James Bustled. James, how you doing, my friend? He says, my guys, I said that in Italian. I don't know if James is Italian, but my guys, thanks for doing this. What are your thoughts on Azeez for next year? And do you think Xavier is back? Thanks. This whole Xavier McKinney thing, Dan, I go back and forth in my mind. I am now leaning, I do believe there's a chance that he's back. Whereas like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was like, oh no, he's gone. But we don't even know who's the defensive coordinator next year now with these reports about Wink Martindale, which I think there's some veracity to those reports. So as for Xavier McKinney, I'm going to say 50-50. That's what I'm putting it at. What are my thoughts on Azeez for next year? Look, he needs to stay healthy. When he is healthy, he's going to be a good pass rusher. He's not that great of a run defender. My opinion of Azeez Ojulari hasn't changed much. It's just a little bit more sour because he hasn't been on the football field much this year.
Yeah. Thank you, Jamie, I believe this is Jamie. I thank you, but you might go by James. You have James in here, but thank you. I've seen you as Jamie, but thank you for the kind donation. And I know you always ask about my golf game, so I'm going to give you a quick golf update, and I won't do this often. I haven't done this in like 17 shows, Nick, so I don't want to hear anything about it from anybody here. I haven't talked golf in a long time, but Jamie, because you are actually interested, I did get a chance to play with my brother this Thanksgiving weekend, which is my favorite thing ever, to play with my brother. He's the reason I even tried this sport in the first place. He's so happy that I finally got into it and we can do those things and go out. We had a perfect day out there. I played some of the best I've ever played. It didn't lead to that much. Like, I didn't have any great birdies or anything like that, but it was clearly one of my best days in a while on a very hard course, Rock Spring over in West Orange. So thank you. As far as my thoughts on Azeez for next year, I think Nick said it best. We still need to see more. And Xavier is the one that I feel like should be re-signed for a multitude of reasons, mostly because I don't believe we should be worrying about the cap space allocated to a player like Xavier McKinney, who's 24 years old. I think we more need to worry about what happens when we just let talent like that go and open up another hole on the roster.
Ooh, triple bogey.
That's Dan when he's golfing. Now, I've golfed with Dan, and I'm very happy with his progression over the years, because we did Top Golf maybe about like 3 years ago, and Dan couldn't even hit a ball. And right now he's like crushing it. So I wanted to give him a lot of credit. Yeah, man. Keep killing it. We have D-Kit, our friend D-Kit. Thank you so much. He says, I think it's clear that Jones's limitations will hold us back. I was hopeful. Now I'm not. I want a playmaker at the position now. Someone with moxie. I would like someone with a little bit of moxie, someone who can create plays. I would say Daniel Jones does an okay job creating plays for me. And I don't want to speak for Dan, but Dan, you can correct me. I just want a quarterback, and we've said this so many times, who challenges every inch of the football field, who forces the defense to respect and to play more too high, to open up and allow the rushing attack, which will open up play action passing attack and just open up the playbook. I don't want a limited playbook. And the Giants have had a limited playbook since Daniel Jones has been here. It is what it is. I want that playbook to be wide open, and I want the Giants to strike fear in opposing defensive coordinators. And that's just something that they have not done for a very long time, unless it was 26, really. And 26 is always the player that is circled by opposing defensive coordinators. I want that to be the quarterback. That's what I want.
Good. I think that's fair. And D-Kit, I think you're right that it is clear Jones's limitations will hold us back. His limitations from a processing standpoint are really what's killing the Giants. As far as want a playmaker at the position. I feel the same way. I do not feel like Daniel Jones is a playmaker at the position whatsoever. He can have some playmaking type runs occasionally, Nick, but some of his longest runs were designed. The scrambles are still in like the 10 to 20 yard range. No real plays made with his arm at any point, really, with the exception of, 5 to 10 per year if we're lucky. That's no good. I want electricity at the quarterback position. When I was watching Jaden Daniels this weekend, who I don't know if will be an NFL quarterback, I do question his ability to drive the football and throw the velocity. The throws you need to put velocity on. I do question, can he put velocity on those throws? But I will say this when it comes to a player like him. When I'm watching him, I see electricity, Nick. I see the ability to create these big explosive plays. I just want electricity back on this offense, Nick. I just want electricity at quarterback. And that just doesn't mean just like a runner type. It means someone who could throw the football well too. And I know some of you think Daniel Jones can throw the football well, but as far as what we've seen, it doesn't happen often. Whatever reason that may be. Maybe it's just the processing. I believe that his arm isn't that electric either, if I'm going to be honest. And I know thousands of NFL scouts would agree with me on that. It's adequate, but that doesn't make it electric. I need some level of electricity from the quarterback position moving forward to give some kind of hope, a playmaking ability. Nick, what did Brian Daboll do with Josh Allen? He took a quarterback who makes a lot of boneheaded mistakes, who throws a lot of dumb passes, but he said, I'll put something more valuable. To me, it's more valuable if you make plays and you're a playmaker. It's more valuable to our offense to actually get some big plays and not worry so much about the turnovers and be a gunslinger, like we've actually seen a little bit from Tommy DeVito, by the way, in these games, because he does seem to have, no regard for where he throws this football into windows that are just very gunslinger-esque. And so I'm just ready for it, Nick. I'm ready to get some electricity, some gunslinger back to the quarterback position. So I agree with you, D-Kit. And Moxie's one way to term it. There's plenty of ways to term it, I think.
Ray Conger, thank you so much, says, first time catching one of these. Well, we really appreciate the donation, my man. So thank you so much. Says, no question for me. I just want to say, I don't know how I'd continue to follow this team without your Oh, man, thank you so much, especially the draft content. And we are so pumped, Ray, about the draft content. Ray also says, keep up the great work. Ray, this has been a pleasant review. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the massive donation, Ray. That was really generous of you. And we're going to definitely bring you even more draft content. We have plans for the offseason to even ramp up the draft content. We have some ideas for that as well. And I appreciate you making that massive donation for us. And thank you so much.
Then we have Chris Perry. Chris, thank you as always. Says, is a hot dog a sandwich? Ooh, that's something for Dan to tackle. Do you see us trading for a quarterback? So you're talking about an existing quarterback. That would be interesting. If they were to, Dan, I think it wouldn't be like a blockbuster. I think it would be like a backup type of deal. But I'm a little bit, I don't really see that happening. Is there a quarterback worth taking a risk on? And then he says Bears, like a Justin Fields, I think is what he is insinuating in a not so tacit manner right there. I don't see the Giants doing that because the Giants are going to have to pay him soon enough. They already have a quarterback that they're paying right now. So I'm not necessarily there. So Dan, what are your takes on that? And also, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Okay, I'll say hot dog is a sandwich because you can get an Italian hot dog or one of those styles where they put a lot of toppings and stuff on it. Makes it more of a sandwich, in my opinion. And I will ask you also this, Nick, real quick. When's the last time you ate a hot dog?
Oh, dude, I have no idea. I haven't had a hot dog. So I have probably maybe in the spring. I had just the wiener. Pause. But
you had a hot dog.
I didn't have the bun, but I was at a barbecue.
That goes with
I was at a barbecue and I was like, what do I have to eat? And it was just wieners and cheeseburgers. So I was like, yeah, I'll try one. And
well, you need the bun. You definitely need the bun for a hot dog. But I know you don't want to go buns, but I understand. Do you see us trading for a quarterback? Chris says an existing quarterback like a Justin Fields. I doubt they go that route. I think what the Giants want to do if they go quarterback is restart a rookie pay scale, right? When you draft these quarterbacks, they're under contract cheap for hopefully 5 years. Then you could tag them or, they just have that one cheap contract. But to trade for a Justin Fields, you then have to re-sign him if it works out and at that point, he's asking for a massive contract. So, I mean, if they're going to throw out if the Bears are just like, screw it, we're taking Caleb Williams, we'll take a 5th round pick for Justin Fields because he's going to screw up the locker room otherwise, or 5th or a 6th, sure, you take the risk on it and you don't re-sign him and you kind of use him as a rental type. That's interesting. Buying really low on talent, like the Eagles do a lot with DeAndre Swift and Kevin Byard, all those players. You want to buy super low on a quarterback? Fine with me. Be the team that does it. Don't let Howie Roseman beat you to the punch. But, anything else than that, I'm not as interested.
But I will say this real quick on Justin Fields. Him going to Brian Daboll is something that would at least interest me because him having his deficiencies fixed and altered, and then possibly having the arm strength and all of the physical talent that he possesses maximized is something that at least makes me be like, that's very interesting with Brian Dable. But I'm not saying that the Giants should do that for all of the financial reasons.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I watched Justin Fields last week against Detroit. I'll make this quick, but I wasn't as impressed as other people were, Nick. I feel like the game plan was a lot of boot action, and it was a lot of just these quick.
It's a lot of Daniel Jones type shit.
It felt like a lot. It felt basically like watching the Giants last year, 2022, watching him. And everyone's like, oh my God, you see him against Detroit. I think he may be a worse processor than Daniel Jones as a mental processor. And just think how much that says, given what we've watched the last 5 years of Giants football.
Good point. Ronald again. Ronald, thank you so much. Is there a bigger fan of the cannoli slinger than Daniel Jones? Even more inventive. Imagine Vito has monstrous growth and ends up as our quarterback one. LOL. Yeah,
it's a good point, Ronald, because it's like, yes, Daniel Jones is the biggest fan of Tom DeVito. People will be asking why. What do you mean by that? Well, what do you think we mean by that? Every win the Giants get right now, thanks to DeVito, the Giants are 100%. Much less likely chance of taking a quarterback. And that means there's an even better chance. As I said earlier in this podcast, the door is, to me, wide open that Daniel Jones is their best option at quarterback in 2024. It is going to be hard as hell for me to, be positive about that and optimistic about that. I'll try my best, but it's a wide open thanks to DeVito. And as far as can he grow into the quarterback one, I do not think he will. And I want to make that clear. This is not a knock on DeVito. This is just a reality check that I'm having. And I do like some of the things he's done. I also dislike some of the things he's done. And despite all that, Nick, he's not really challenging 40, 35 yards on the field. I don't think he'll ever challenge down the field that way. We've seen him throw 2 long passes. Both were underthrown and intercepted. One wasn't underthrown. It was just bad throw. And in addition to that, just the processing in the pocket, the sacks he's taking. This is probably like really good evidence, by the way, to all the Daniel Jones truthers that yes, they're finally learning that sacks are not all on the offensive line and they can be on a quarterback, because a lot of these DeVito sacks, we got to be honest, have been on him.
Well, yeah, absolutely. He's hold on to the football. I mean, it's not a surprise. He's an undrafted kid. It's going to happen.
Right. But he's an undrafted guy.
I love that comment, Ronald. And you're right. Daniel Jones is sitting there like, yes, he's really rooting for the Giants. He's rooting for the Giants right now more than he was rooting for the Giants when he was a freaking starting quarterback. All right. All right. D-Kit, this is our final super, and we're going to get out of here. D-Kit, thank you so much again. Says, do you think Jones is sitting on the couch screaming at the television, take the check down, Tommy, or shaking his head now they decide to pass protect? I think Daniel Jones is exactly what Ronald's saying. He just wants them to find a way to win. Yeah. And if it's check down in that situation, depending on the context, then he's happy about it. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure which way he is screaming at the television, or even if Daniel Jones is screaming at a television, he is probably just sitting there watching it cool, calm, and collected.
Yeah, I feel like he's not the type of guy who screams regardless. But yeah, thank you so much for the donations tonight, everybody. And thank you for tuning into the Big Blue Banter podcast. We will keep it moving forward. We have some film to break down this week, some interesting explosive plays, Jalen Hyatt. And thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.